All right, let's dive into the world of Manappuram Finance during Q2 of fiscal year 2025. Their investor reports are out, and some of this stuff is interesting. I mean, we're talking about India's #2 lender for gold loans. That's like 60 metric tons of gold from 2.6 million customers. So,
Yeah, and what's really interesting is Manappuram's not just your typical pawn shop.
right.
They're trying to be a much bigger player in finance.
So, like, are you talking about the microfinance stuff and the vehicle loans and home loans? I mean,
Exactly. They're reaching a whole segment of the population that regular banks aren't really serving.
oh, yeah, for sure. All right, so the headlines are saying that their profits actually jumped this quarter. What were the highlights?
So first off, consolidated AUM, that's assets under management, that grew by 17.4% year over year, reaching 457 billion rupees. So that's pretty impressive growth, right? Shows they're getting more customers and expanding. Now, net profit, what they actually pocketed, that saw a slight increase to 5,721 million for the quarter.
So it seems like things are looking pretty good, right?
Yeah. And their return on equity, or ROE, was a healthy 18.6%. That's a good number, right? Means they're using their equity to generate profits really well. Could signal strong growth in the future, maybe even attract more investment. But we do need to dig deeper into the different parts of their business to get the full picture.
Okay, so there's more to it than just those impressive numbers, huh?
Oh, yeah, of course. Remember, their core business is gold loans. Gold loan AUM also grew by a solid 17.1% year over year, which is in line with their overall growth. But the interesting thing is the net yields on those loans, basically their profit margin, stayed steady at 22.5%.
I'm no financial whiz or anything, but shouldn't growing AUM also mean growing yields? Why are those just holding steady?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. You see, stable yields in the gold loan market can be a good thing and a bad thing. On the one hand, it shows Manappuram's managing their risk pretty well. Their profits aren't getting squeezed even if gold prices fluctuate, which is good for their bottom line. But you got to wonder, is the gold loan market getting too competitive? Are they having to keep their rates low just to attract customers and possibly squeezing their future profits? This stability could actually be a sign of a maturing market, something investors are definitely watching.
Right, so sometimes a seemingly positive number is hinting at something else going on under the surface. Okay, but it's not all just gold for Manappuram anymore, is it? They've been getting into other financial products like microfinance, vehicle financing, even home loans. Isn't that like a good sign of a company adapting and trying to grow?
Oh, absolutely. They're definitely diversifying their offerings, and the numbers show it. Their non-gold loan business is now a pretty significant 46.7% of their total assets, almost half their portfolio.
Wow, that's a big jump. What's driving that growth in their non-gold loans?
Vehicle financing and home loans are looking really promising. These are areas where they can reach a much bigger customer base and become less dependent on the gold loan market, which, like we were saying, might be getting kind of saturated.
It sounds like a good plan, but are there challenges too? There's got to be some bumps in the road.
Well, of course, every business decision has its risks. When they venture into these new loan areas, they're dealing with different kinds of customers, different risk factors, and maybe even a whole bunch of new competitors. Think of it like they've mastered the gold loan swimming pool, but now they're jumping into this vast ocean of other financial products.
That's a good way to put it. Okay, but before we get lost talking about their expansion, let's talk about the elephant in the room, this Asirvad situation.
Yeah, definitely. So for anyone who hasn't heard, Asirvad Microfinance, a subsidiary of Manappuram, they got hit with a cease and desist order from the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI.
Whoa, so are they not allowed to lend at all now? What was that about?
Well, not completely. They can still manage their current loans, but they can't make new ones. The RBI was concerned about Asirvad's pricing policies. Basically, they found that the interest rates and fees they were charging were way too high.
Ouch, that's gotta sting a bit. So what does this mean for Asirvad and for Manappuram overall?
It's a big setback for sure. I mean, Asirvad's growth is basically frozen.
Yeah.
And for Manappuram, it makes people wonder how well they're overseeing their subsidiaries and maybe even how they approach risk management and regulations in general.
Yeah, that's definitely something they'll have to handle carefully. But wait, isn't there another twist buried in these financial reports? I feel like there's something
Oh,
else.
you're right. Apparently, there was an employee at Manappuram Comtech, their IT subsidiary, embezzling company funds.
Oh, wow, seriously. How much money are we talking about?
Get this. The initial estimate was a whopping 19.78 crore rupees. That's like almost 200 million.
Wow, that's a lot of money. What does this mean for their internal controls? Shouldn't they have something to prevent this kind of thing from happening?
Yeah, that's the concerning part, right?
Mm.
They did have an independent investigation, and it confirmed the initial estimate, and they've got a recovery plan going. But it definitely raises some questions about how secure things are at Manappuram Comtech and how vulnerable they are to fraud. Really highlights the need for strong internal audits and vigilance, even in IT departments.
Right. You never really know. So we've got Manappuram here pushing ahead with their growth and diversification plans. Even with all these setbacks, it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle all these challenges while also trying to achieve their goals.
It is, definitely. I'll have to see how this unfolds.
It's wild, right? This company, Manappuram, doing so well with gold loans, and now they're trying to branch out into all these other areas. But they're also dealing with the RBI breathing down their neck and that whole embezzlement thing. It's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's like a financial thriller or something, you
Yeah.
know? You got all this growth and risky moves, regulatory headaches, and even some corporate drama. Never a dull moment in finance.
You got that right. But let's zoom out a bit, look at the bigger picture. What does Manappuram tell us about the financial world in India as a whole?
Well, Manappuram is kind of a mini version of what's happening in India's financial sector right now. You've got this huge market of people who need access to credit, individuals, small businesses, people that traditional banks have kind of ignored.
And Manappuram, with their gold loan experience, they're in a good position to serve those people, right?
Exactly. They get what these customers need. They built a good brand and they have a huge network. But as India's economy keeps growing, those customers' expectations are changing too. They want more options, better service, and better rates.
And that's where Manappuram is trying to diversify, right? They're realizing they need to move beyond just gold loans if they want to stay competitive.
Exactly. They're putting their money on vehicle financing, home loans, and microfinance for future growth. But, expanding like that opens them up to new risks and challenges too.
Like that whole thing with Asirvad and the RBI stepping in. It's a wake-up call. Regulators are watching and companies need to be super careful about how they operate.
Oh, absolutely. The RBI is basically saying responsible lending is non-negotiable. If companies like Manappuram want to be successful in the long run, they can't cut corners or just chase profits.
And then there's the embezzlement case. That definitely hurts investor confidence and raises some serious questions about their internal controls and risk management.
No doubt about it. It's a lesson for all companies, really, not just Manappuram. In today's world, even a small mistake can have huge consequences. Companies need to be proactive, they need strong safeguards, and they need to create a culture of transparency.
So even with impressive growth and big plans for the future, there can still be these unexpected roadblocks. It's like they're always trying to balance managing risks and grabbing opportunities, all while staying ahead of the game.
You hit the nail on the head. Manappuram is a perfect example of how all these things play out in the real world. It'll be interesting to see how they deal with these challenges in the next few months.
Yeah. Will they keep growing? Will they fix their internal issues? Will they adapt to the changing market in India and actually become a leader in finance?
That's the big question. We don't know for sure, but we can look for hints in what they do next, their financials, and how they respond to the regulators.
That's what makes this so fascinating to follow, right? It's a glimpse into how the financial world really works. Every decision matters, and the stakes are high.
Exactly. It reminds us that business is about more than just numbers. It's about people, strategies, risks, and always having to adapt.
So for our listeners, what's the takeaway from all this? Why should they care about what's happening with Manappuram?
Because it shows what's happening in finance, in India, and everywhere else. It's about the challenges and opportunities of serving those markets that have been overlooked, the importance of spreading your risk, and doing business the right way.
It's also about being resilient, being able to adapt, and having the courage to change.
Manappuram's story has lessons for investors, entrepreneurs, and anyone who wants to understand how the global economy works.
So whether you're thinking about investing in a company like this or just trying to make sense of the financial world, keep an eye on Manappuram. It shows that even successful companies face challenges. It's a reminder to stay informed, ask the tough questions, and look beyond the headlines.
That's so true, and we'll continue exploring that in our next segment.
It's really interesting how Manappuram's story kind of ties in with the whole economic situation in India. They're riding this wave of growth, but they're also facing some pretty big obstacles.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, the Indian financial landscape is constantly changing, and Manappuram is right in the middle of it all. You've got things like interest rates, inflation, Government policies, all those things can really impact companies like this.
Yeah, it's like they're juggling a bunch of different things at once. Growth, diversification, risk management, keeping the regulators happy, all while this whole economic environment is shifting around them.
It's a lot to handle, for sure. But what really stands out to me about Manappuram is the human side of things. Behind all those numbers and market trends, there are actual people making decisions, taking risks, trying to build something successful.
And those decisions, those judgment calls, they can really change the course of a company.
Absolutely. Look at what happened with Astravet, right?
Mm.
Was there something they missed in their risk assessment? Did they maybe focus too much on growth and not enough on responsible lending? Those are tough questions, but they show how important a company's culture is and how ethics should be a part of every decision.
And that embezzlement case, even if it seems like an isolated thing, it still makes you think about their internal controls and how easy it might be for fraud to happen, even in big companies.
Yeah, it's a wake-up call for everyone, really. It shows that trust and transparency and accountability are so important if you want long-term success. No company, no matter how good their intentions are, is immune to human mistakes.
So, what's the takeaway for our listeners? Why should they care about all this stuff happening with Manappuram?
Because it's a reflection of what's going on in the financial world everywhere, not just in India.
It's a story about ambition, taking risks, and adapting to change, things we all deal with in our own lives.
It reminds us that even the most successful companies can face unexpected challenges. It shows how important it is to stay informed, ask tough questions, and dig deeper than just the headlines.
So, if you're listening and feeling a little bit lost in all the complexities of finance, don't worry, you're not alone. We're all trying to figure this stuff out as we go.
That's right. Just keep learning, keep exploring, and don't be afraid to question things. That's what the deep dive is all about.
And that's a wrap for today. Until next time, stay curious.